You're listening to the Aftergrad podcast. I'm Robert Kane.
And I'm Victoria, and we are your fellow Aftergrads trying to find clarity and security in this postgrad moment.
On this show, we discuss the societal pressures that stand to mold us into inauthentic versions of ourselves while striving to make our dreams a reality.
We welcome you on this journey as we try to navigate the pandemic, bills, careers, and who knows what else.
But today, we're having a cool conversation about making mistakes, how to recover from them, making sure that our mindsets are in the best, most positive state so that we can recover and learn from the errors that we make, all the while trying to limit the amount of unforced errors that we make while moving through life, right?
Exactly. In tennis, we refer to the term unforced errors. Basically, it's a mistake that shouldn't be made.
Right.
It's something that can be predicted and avoided. Exactly. And so we're applying that to life.
Right.
We're applying that to life and figuring out, okay, what errors, we know errors are going to come regardless.
They're inevitable. They happen to us all.
The unforced errors, they make or break that experience, that journey, and that tournament or that match
or in life
or the adversity that you face. So,
and it could just be such an unnecessary factor that contributes to stress, anxiety, and if you're constantly making these mistakes, these unforced errors, then your life is just going to be a little bit more difficult because you keep having to bounce back up, right?
You keep reliving it. I used to have a coach who said insanity is doing the same thing and expecting something different, right? And so I apply that to everything. And so I have these habits that are considered unforced.
Right.
One of them being, let's talk about this New York trip.
Right, because we got back, the surprise New York trip. I had no idea, but it was so much fun. Got to catch up with friends, right? And then you just had surprise after surprise. It was unfortunate that some of the surprise actually didn't get to surprise me, but it was still just beautiful getting to hang out with one of the friends that we made here. Shout out to you, girl. And meet up with some of the people that I studied abroad with. Shout out to you as well, Alana. And it was beautiful. That was my second time in New York City, being able to spend the time there with you. More domestic travel, not international travel, but it was just great. Baby steps, but it was good just getting out of DC for a little bit.
And celebrating you.
And celebrating me. That's what the day and the moment was about. So we talked about it on the previous episode, but it actually was great being able to take a moment away from work, a moment away from the routine to just experience me and my day, you know? So thank you for that. Thank you to everyone that turned out. I appreciated all of you, seeing you again.
Fun,
it
so
was
memorable, but amidst all the memorable moments, there were, through all of us, we had moments of losing stuff.
Right.
I'm gonna talk about me.
Yeah.
I lost my wallet. Listen, I'm now looking at it as a moment of New York accepting me.
Right, welcoming you.
It's like you can be considered a New Yorker now.
Yeah, right. I've taken something from you, so you're a piece of me now.
Really, it was wrapped around my wrist. I purposely got this type of designed wallet that wraps around your wrist so it would not fall off.
And there were photos that showed it on your wrist. You actually had it.
That it was on my wrist.
Yeah.
But for some reason, the minute I got off of the Uber, poof, it was gone.
Just vanished.
But you know what? Coming up to the trip, I was like, I'm not gonna lose my wallet. I'm not gonna, because that's something I tend to do. I always lose either my wallet or my phone.
Right.
And with my phone, I have the saying that I'm like, oh, it's gone, but it always comes back to me.
It comes back, right? Because we'll be at the apartment and I'll tell you where
and I'm like, oh, she just wanted to go for a little quick. She want to have a breather, and she'll come back, and she always does.
Right.
And so I kind of changed my lingo with the phone situation, but with the wallet, I'm always paranoid about that same unforced error that I continue to make.
Right.
And I would always say, oh, I'm such a klutz, or I forget this and I forget that. And then we had some other friends. We had who had their wallet or their card 1 minute, left it at the coffee shop.
Thought they left it, and then just didn't know where it was. We were just destroying the apartment to try and figure out where it was, and we eventually found it. But I mean, it was a situation where we just couldn't figure it out.
But then after the situation, the person would be like, oh, I'm always losing things, right? And I'm just thinking on that, reflecting. These are some unforced errors. How do we get rid of those? Have you ever had any, studying abroad? I know you told me a little bit about a time you lost.
It was stolen from me. So, I mean, this was just an unfortunate situation. I wouldn't call it an unforced... Well, actually, you know what? It kind of was an unforced error because I should have done my due diligence in the situation. So, basically, the moment was I was with my friend that I actually got to see, Alana, up in New York. We were traveling to Barcelona for her birthday, and of course, we got to get the cute pictures. We were doing a photo shoot moment in the Arc de Triomphe, right? We were in the little park area, and there was a moment where we were just loving the photos. We were looking on our camera, and we set our bag down. I set my backpack down, right? And it was right beneath my feet. But in the midst of this moment, this random man came up to us and just started a conversation. And he put his hand on my shoulder and just looked me right in the eye and was talking in French, right? And I'm just like, I don't speak French. No French here, okay?
French is beautiful.
It is a beautiful language, but I know a little bit of...
Unforced.
Right. Well,
that got me.
Yeah, no, it got me. But I think the unforced error portion of the situation was us leaving the bag unattended. And even though it was right there, we should have done better. I should have been like Alana, watch the bag or put the bag on my back or something like that. But in that moment, while I'm talking to this person and he's pointing down, telling us to look at his phone, right? Because he's trying to ask us where we're at. Because he starts off in French, then goes into English, and I realize that he's asking me where are we at. And we're at a pretty popular spot. It's the Arc de Triomphe. It's in Barcelona. I would imagine most people would know where we're at. But in that moment, after I finished telling him where we're at, I look back and my bag is gone. Whoa. And in my bag, I have clothes, I have my wallet, my passport. Whoa. Everything is just gone. Everything is gone, and I'm like, Alana, where's my stuff? Gosh. Where's my bag? Where'd it go? Gosh. Hello, what's good? Where'd it go? And it was swiped in that moment, and I was stressed, We had just gotten there too. I think that was our second day in Barcelona.
Oh my god!
And you were talking about how you have this error. You make this mistake.
I bet you didn't make that mistake again.
Oh, I haven't made that mistake since. I'm always on my P's and Q's.
As an error, but then not an unforced because it never happened again.
It hasn't happened again. Ooh. Right? So it was a mistake. It was an error. It was semi-unforced and semi-forced because someone was out to scam me. Someone was out to run a game, and they ran a game. They got what they came to find.
Best believe you stand next to your bag.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, when we were in Tulum, you did not let your bags out of sight.
Oh, absolutely.
If anybody was past us asking questions, you had your bag near you. I saw that.
Sure.
I caught up.
Oh yeah, so I would always be like, Victoria, do you see? Yeah. Do you watch our bags? If we're talking to anyone, I don't care who you are.
Right.
Even if I'm in my country now too, when I'm walking out, that's why I'm kind of just very much to myself when I'm walking in big cities. If people are coming up to me, nope, don't talk to me. I'm busy. I'm here doing my thing because I just don't want that to ever happen again. That was so unfortunate and so awful, and I was stranded in Barcelona, and there was the Catalan protests too in the midst of that whole fiasco. So it was just very chaotic. There was lots of high energy, stressful, intense energy. I was trying to evacuate, and my university, they were being troublesome, not willing to give me the support that I felt like I needed to get back to my study abroad location in Prague. Wow. So it was a whole situation. But I will tell you one thing, I learned from that moment, right? It made me more resilient. Right? And I'm always the kind of person where I think in the past I would say I think everything happens for a reason, and while I do believe that, for me it's more of a mindset situation. I tell myself everything happens for a reason so that I can just continue moving forward and having the idea and mindset that I can learn from any negative situation that happens to me.
So you learn from that situation.
Yeah.
Do we have any common rituals or habits that are on the negative side of things that continue to happen, and do you think there's some things that we do that perpetuate that habit? I know I have one.
Yeah, what's that?
Mine is I keep telling myself that it's a small one, but to me it's big, especially in business and networking and just getting to know people and being genuine in general. It's remembering people's names. I always tell people, hi, nice to meet you. What is your name? I'm so sorry if I forget it. I'm very forgetful of people's names. Yeah. That is one unforced error that I keep making. And I think what helps perpetuate it is the fact that I affirm it by saying I am bad with names. I am bad with memorizing a name of a person. Right. And so that's one I'm trying to currently break.
And I think you're doing good, right? I think it's just a positive self-talk too, or just finding a way in your mind to be aware of that mistake that you make, the error that you make, and just, at least that it exists, right? You know that it's there, and you can do work to create systems in your life that allow you to improve or to learn people's names better. I guess that's
on a small scale.
On a small scale, yeah.
Do you have any that you feel like that are reoccurring?
That reoccur constantly? I mean,
that's my current one.
Yeah, for me, I'm very organized. I mean, for me, it's more larger life situations that seem to happen. Okay, so when I'm traveling, right?
Because me, it was my wallet. Yeah. It's the wallet memorizing names that keep happening. in the universe, it keeps happening to me. I'm like, I swear, these items have legs.
They keep moving. They keep pushing around.
Specifically names continue to leave my mind. But yet I am good at memorizing things.
Yeah, I will say I've always been good with memorizing names, but I will say ever since the pandemic started, memorizing names and knowing people's names and faces, that has been something that has begun to leave me, but that has always been something that I was generally pretty good at.
But see, what's helping perpetuate like the good aspect of memorizing the name is like, you're like, I'm good with names.
Right. Because I've always been good with names, but that's just one thing that I've noticed ever since the pandemic has started. And that could be a product of me not interacting with as many people as I normally do. But that, for me, I always just try and take great pride in memorizing someone's name, because, I mean, that's the way that people introduce themselves. Yeah. So I want to make sure that I get their name, right? And I've always been good at memorizing it.
Is it something that you used to tell yourself that you weren't so good at? Let me hit it that way. In that it did come to fruition because you were saying that you weren't so good at it. Instead of
public speaking, I guess. I think that would probably be one. And I know we've talked about it before, but going back to just some of the positions that I did when I was in university, I'm naturally a very shy person. And in university, and even before that, like in high school, I was just such a very timid and reserved person. And my anxiety was just always through the roof, right? And I would compensate by avoiding any situation where I had to speak publicly, right? So, and I think the negative self-talk that I had perpetuated me not being good at that, because I think the more you say something, that becomes your reality. Maybe it wasn't
even negative self-talk. Maybe it was a habit or like a behavior that you, like you said, making the conscious attempt or conscious effort not to put yourself in that situation to public speak.
I think it was a combination of both, to be honest. I think it was a combination of the negative self-talk, me saying that this is not something that I'm good at based on previous performance, based on the way that I internalized how I was doing at something. And I think we always have a different perceptions of ourselves than the world has of us, but nonetheless the perception of ourselves seems to overpower any other perception from our friends, from our family, from the world, outside world. And then there's the other factor, like you're saying, the behavioral element of it as well. I think both of those contributed to me not being a good public speaker, not wanting to put myself into situations where I had to speak publicly, right? And I've overcome that fear. It's not something that phases me anymore, and I definitely overcame that by telling myself that I'm a good public speaker, telling myself that I can do it, telling myself that I want to do it, just putting all these positive affirmations around this thing that once scared me, but now I just changed the mindset around it. And you know, it's kind of like those Issa Rae moments when you're watching Insecure, how she's hyping herself up in the mirror. I did that too, literally. That's why those situations in the show where she's having those moments where she's hyping herself up, telling herself that you can do it, girl, you've got this, just go out, do it. If you fail, that's okay, that's fine, but you did it, you left it out on the line. So in regards to a mistake, you know, sometimes you'll be speaking publicly and you'll forget your lines, you'll forget what the topic you're talking about, right? It happens, and when I do that, it frustrates me, and that's definitely, I'm going to categorize it as an unforced error, but it's something that you just have to learn from, right? You just have to improve upon it. So for you, you know, it's being bad with names, forgetting the names. For me, it was my mindset around speaking publicly.
So this one guy we were watching, and he mentioned the term cybernetic, and I believe that brings another level to what we're talking about, because we can easily go around and say, oh, you know, positive feedback, positive talking, like that is such basic information. But this guy brought forth this new science fancy word, cybernetic cycle, and it's basically this cyclical action of you constantly thinking of thyself, and through your experiences, through your past life, and especially during your early stages of life, you create these beliefs surrounded by the experiences you go through, and then from those experiences you have emotions, and then those emotions take you back to that belief, and then that negative cycle brings forth this rotation of you constantly hitting this like backboard of issues that involve the same thing. So like, you might have been public speaking at one point. Me, it was like my ability to pronounce to other people what I wanted to do, and my ability to memorize names on a simple spectrum of things. Me losing my wallet and then saying, I am such a klutz. I lose this, I lose that. I think it can be attributed to that rotation of things, which brings us back to the basic terminology of like speaking positively about this situation, right?
Right.
So changing our beliefs.
Because at the root of it, I mean, I think we have a personality, we have traits that make us, that make up us. You know, we have our introverted natures, we have our extroverted natures, we have different ideals and beliefs about what makes up us, what makes up Victoria, what makes up Robert, what makes up any given aftergrad, right? But within that, then there's the experiential elements about how you move through life and the parents that you have, the experiences, the schools that you go to that kind of all shape you, and you can glean different insight from those experiences, but there's always somewhat of a fundamental way that you're kind of set to move through life if you are spiritual in that way, if you believe in zodiac, if you believe in anything that has to do with innate human behavior, innate human nature, I guess there's always a set fundamental way that we can internalize things. But just because there is that foundation doesn't mean that we don't have the ability to shape our beliefs and shape our mindsets about how we internalize mistakes, about how we internalize learnings from life. So I think, I mean, that gets back to, I guess the first point is about, in terms of the cybernetic pathways and cycles that we experience, it's about the awareness factor, for me at least, just being aware that certain things exist, being aware that at one point in my life there was this fear around public speaking. At one point for you there's this forgetfulness in regards to the wallet, right? Forgetfulness in regards to names.
Yeah.
So being aware that that exists and then just taking a step to figure out, okay, I know it's there, but how can I do better? How can I move forward and learn from it?
Right. Also, finding awareness, and then when you find that awareness, you also have to be mindful that, I think what the guy said that was so powerful to me, that really stuck out, was that these past experiences, if we don't recognize them, the consequences of that is that our lens of the future is like it's going to be projecting that. It's only going to be bringing forth more of that same habit, that same adversity, or that same lesson that you keep reliving and relearning and trying to figure out, how the heck can I change this? And then we live these lives that bring forth this belief. So that's our vision, right? How do you envision something different so you can believe in something else? And that comes from possibly you not have ever even experiencing it before. And that brings forth like the power of imagination. Right. And then we get into like the brain, and this guy was mentioning that your brain doesn't know the difference between your imagination and what is actually reality. And some of us might be living in these realities and these experiences that constantly are being the forefront or the prediction of what we will then begin to experience. And when I start geeking about economics as well, we start looking at like families and homes, and a majority of the people who like have children, they will make as much as their mother. That's the prediction.
That's the statistic.
That's the prediction. I think that really lies back to also like what you live is what you will also live out, right? So then how can you, if I'm sitting here and I'm saying I see this for myself and I have not lived it yet, or I see myself not being forgetful, I see myself being really organized, never losing my wallet, right? Like, how can I envision, I need to be able to envision that,
you have to see
and imagine that, and then my brain believes it without even knowing it's an actual reality yet. And then,
but when you get there, I think what he was also saying is that there's the emotions that you kind of anticipate or that you foreshadow, right? So that when you actually finally experience it, your body has already been there. Your body has already emotionally felt it. So you're preparing yourself.
It thinks it's real.
It thinks it's real.
That's ultimately changing the belief. I think that's so
powerful.
That one. That one.
That is powerful, empowering. So thinking about how would this connect to being an aftergrad, how can shifting our mindset around the mistakes that we make or the circumstances that we're in, right, that have been forced on us, how can we still benefit or find ways to rationalize these moments for ourselves in a way to benefit? So for example, you know, again, being an aftergrad or being an undergraduate student, that progress, that progression, you might be a senior, right? Being prepared to enter the adulthood, right? And you might have these certain expectations around what that will look like, or maybe you didn't achieve the jobs or the outcomes that you wanted for yourself, right? You had all of these expectations. Your parents told you that I'm paying for this college degree for X, Y, and Z outcome, right?
It's a lot of pressure.
It is a lot of pressure. So going back to how we've made various mistakes in our previous life, how we have had these moments that we're not necessarily proud of, how can aftergrads reflect on those moments for themselves, right? And internalize it for a better future. Like, what can they do right now, living in an undergraduate degree or being recently graduated in their adulthood? How can they move forward if they're in a stressful environment, if they're in an environment that isn't necessarily serving them? Because I think we're having a conversation about mindset shifts, right? This isn't a physical, we just went to New York City to celebrate me, which is a great moment to physically escape. But I think what we are talking about right now is the ability for us to always have control of our now.
Right. And to maintain that state of quote unquote happiness, right? Because like we were in the midst of celebration and I lost my wallet, and that could have easily been a turmoil.
Right.
It could have easily turned
But
to that.
The way you remained hype. The way you remained hype through it all.
Fred. Thank you, Fred. Yeah. I think it really comes down to, what another thing someone was saying was that there's two states of being, right? And with awareness of those states of being, when you shift, right? One is, I think they categorize it as primal. The primal stage, and that's feeling depressed, feeling anxious, feeling sad, feeling sporadic, right? And then there's the other state, which is feeling powerful and feeling influential and so forth, yada yada, right? And so recognizing when that shift happens, and then knowing the tools that can get you back into that main state of being, that state of mind that's like enthusiastic, right? And that's influential and so forth, right? So though I felt myself moving towards that primal state, right? And so that was one, the awareness, right? When I lost my wallet, oh my God, where is it? Ooh, that Uber, I swear to God, he has it.
As
like, he took it.
Because it's there, and right?
Then, hold up.
Calm down.
We are in New York.
We're in New York.
In Brooklyn, we look good.
We do.
We look really good.
Yeah.
I don't want this to be the moment. I don't want this to be my memory.
Yeah.
No. Because I envisioned us having a time of our lives.
Right. You put so much work into the planning.
And we're going to make that happen. That's going to happen. So I just, fine.
Right.
Turned off my cards.
Exactly.
What's the worst? And then I also I wasn't in the bathroom because you were with me. I forgot where I was. But I was like, what's the worst that could have happened? Right. I think that was the tool I used in that moment. I remember us having that conversation. And that really helped me step back from the situation and realize that it could be a lot worse, right? So I think in that moment, I was like, what really could have been the worst was losing a phone. Exactly. Because a phone is an $800 replacement. You can't cancel it. It's gone. Insurance is not the same. Doesn't work the same. But the worst I lost was like my driver's license, and I can easily get that issued out for another $11. So why am I stressed and why am I harping on it? No. So I think it took a turnover of 5 minutes. But how? You were saying how, right? Yeah. Like how can these aftergrads, how can we manage those moments even at larger scales? It's recognizing, I think what this man was saying is what is so dope about our generation and time is that our technologies and the resources that we have to turn over that time period of like feeling going back and forth between those two, the primal and the powerful moment, right? We can have and know the tools needed to make that shift quicker. Yeah, there was like, and then there was even a moment in Tulum. We were in Tulum. We missed our flight.
Yeah, we sure did. We sure did. We had to regroup, but I mean, we've just always had that mindset.
Yeah, we walked up like, oh, that's the flight leaving, and we definitely
begged them. I was
had to get wait. We had to get clarity for COVID.
Right. The flight was leaving in 20 minutes or so. We had to go get that COVID check.
Outside the airport. We were chill.
We weren't making that flight.
I mean, I was running, but other than that, when I walked up, my reaction was like, oh my God. My reaction was like, oh, okay.
Right.
Bet, yo, it's like that.
Okay, fine.
You want to go to Austin?
Yeah, let's do it. No, that was honestly the energy because, I mean, I knew as soon as they said you need a COVID test, I knew there was 20-25 minutes to get that COVID test and then get on the flight. I knew we weren't getting there, but we went through the motions.
Exactly.
Right? But then when they said the flight's gone, it's just, when's the next flight?
Right.
Okay, no flight. Flex bus to Austin, just really quick. And I think that I mean, for me, it wasn't even a bad situation. I think also what we can do is think about what we can gain from the experience or what we can learn from the negative situation. I got to see another city. I'd been to Austin once before, but never experienced it. So and also have friends in Austin too, as well as you, I think. So, okay, that's a positive situation. I get to go to a bus ride. I'm not driving the bus. I just get to sit back, sleep, chill, relax, see another spot. And that was the energy. And I just always try to think, how can I learn and gain something from this situation?
Yes.
And also,
I lost my speaker.
You lost too. Oh, you did.
And you dropped the gem that day. Because I was running up to catch our flight. Yeah. And then in the midst of that, I left my like $200 speaker. Okay. In the security. Yeah. I was freaking out a little bit. Yeah, I don't play with my music. Of course. That's the thing that's one of the tools and mechanisms that keeps me sane. Yeah. But you dropped the gem. You saying that your dad really like enforced in you, and that really hit home for me. Yeah. In terms of again turning over that moment of like feeling discomfort and anxiety. I mean, growing up, my dad was just always big on that aspect. He would just always tell me that no matter what type of situation you're in, especially, you know, a negative situation, if you can't fix it, if there's nothing that you can do in the immediate, there's no sense in getting upset about it. There's no sense in letting it become your whole experience, that anger overpowering you. Obviously, I think what my dad is trying to say in that moment is just control your response to the situation, but don't let the situation or the person or the thing control how you respond, right? So it's all about just being in control of your emotions and not letting these visceral responses produce themselves from you. You have to be in control of your response to these negative situations, and that has just carried itself with me throughout all of my life. So we mentioned that we have to be aware of the situations that keep happening. Yeah. In order to make these unforced errors more limited, right? Like that's something I did in tennis. Like we would record my matches and then watch the matches, and I would have to sit through and figure out the common denominator between all of the points, what was screwing me over. And then it's deciding, okay, what do I need to do what tools can I use to, you know, overcome those. Yeah. I think we just mentioned through our self-experiences. A physical tool, now for my wallet situation, I purchased this Apple tag. Yeah. And you can slip it in your wallet, and at any given point, you can track it. Now, where did I make a mistake? I forgot to put it in my wallet before we left for New York. So typically, this would have been an error that I would have overcame if I, you know, actually decided, because I knew that was a mistake I was making constantly. Another thing, meditation for me on larger scales when I'm dealing with things that are beyond me and I feel like I cannot get myself out of it. Sure. And also I have family experiences or past experiences that cannot imagine a better, you know, outcome. Meditation is where I go to imagine this new way of being, right? And then start practicing, and then without subconsciously bringing forth that into my existence, either that way of thinking, either that way of being, just getting closer to my higher self, even though I do not know what my higher self looks like yet, but I know I'm in tune with her, right? Of course. So then there's...
my bad. I'm happy you brought up tennis, because I was literally, I mean, that's how we initially met too, tennis. We were on the same tennis team back in San Diego. But for me, just really reflecting on tennis, I always had this issue of translating my practice game to the real match game. And for me, it really just goes back, at least when I'm reflecting on tennis, this self-talk element, because I would always, you were talking about looking at the screening, looking at how you played, looking at the reel, right? Looking at how you moved on the court, the mistakes that you made. I would do the same thing and always just scrutinize my game, but in the worst, in the negative sense, right? I would be hypercritical in a negative way. I'm not doing this correctly. I'm not improving this. We just worked on that in practice. Why can't it translate in the match? I'm not good at volleying. I'm not good at overheads. I would always have just bad, negative self-talk and being hypercritical. But I think I never got to it in tennis, but in terms of what I do now, or at least what I'm learning from mentors in my life and just the wisdom that I've been receiving, it's being hypercritical, but in a positive sense, scrutinizing yourself to the point where you are trying to live out a better version of yourself. You know what you're capable of.
It's not dismantling you.
Oh, that word. It's not dismantling, and that's what I was doing in the past. I would dismantle myself, my personality, what I did, what I didn't do. Right. But it's about building yourself up through the mistakes and welcoming them because they're a part of you. That one. Right? And I think it's all in an effort to live out some better version that you have already imagined in the present, also a little bit in the past, in an effort to just always be better, in an effort to always reach a higher vision, a higher purpose for yourself. Exactly. Right? So again, I guess the summary is just being hypercritical in a positive sense, right?
I definitely think that applies to Aftergrads, because all of us are hustlers out here. We're trying to literally make a new path for ourselves, something different that hasn't been done within either, it's a different, we want to make a different generation.
Exactly.
Right? Either in our family or on a larger scale of things. And so having that, we have to know that we aren't there yet.
Right.
But not say that we aren't capable of being there. I think that's a really cool, not the cool thing, but the distinctive thing about us Aftergrads out here is we are hustlers, or we're trying to create this path that is very separate and different from what we've lived before. We're trying to create this new generation, this new set of people, just a new set of thoughts, and we're also trying to spread that. And we're trying to, and ultimately, hopefully we make a better world out of this place and a better afterlife after grad, right? And that journey, that state of growing is, to an extent, a realization that we aren't there yet, but not saying that we cannot be there.
Right. Being all right with not knowing the answer, I mean, that's what we've discussed too.
And humbling yourself to know that you don't know the answer.
That you don't,
I think that was a big turnover in at least in my timeline. From in high school to now. It very much, I always had a vision. I always had this idea that I wanted to create a different set, and I share on this channel all the time of like the type of dreams I have for myself. But the huge difference was before, that girl was like, I'm gonna do everything in my power to be like perfect, and so that there's no room for error at all, and if there is error, then I'm a failure.
I failed. That was my mentality as well.
Exactly. And then coming out of college, it's this realization and this huge shift and so much more growth and so much smoother transition when I decided that I like errors. I need the errors.
Comfortable with them.
I'm comfortable
That's
with
fine.
the errors.
That's literally fine.
That's fine. I will recognize them.
Yeah.
I will find my tools that help me be comfortable in this current moment. And I will take step by step, which is what you were getting to about the car scenario. I think you were mentioning something about a car, like going, oh, was it me and my imagination? I think visually. So sometimes I see images when people talk. So I think you were saying we got to keep moving forward. And I just envisioned a car in the midst of fog. And you can't see.
That was on the video. That was on the video in the interview that we were listening to. Continue.
You can't necessarily see what's in front of you, but you can see like the first yard, right? And all you can do is just keep on driving.
Keep moving forward.
Keep on driving, and that new ledge and that new set of distance will come. In these recent moments, I've been expressing that I am ready to work for a company again, right? But the thing is now that I've done all of this self-work and this introspection of myself in terms of what I see myself doing, it's very specific and it's very niche. And, instead of saying, it's not going to happen, or I might have to settle and like do this right now, do that right now, I'm just saying, you know what? I'm not going to care about that. What I internalize and what I visualize for myself doing is this. And what's crazy is literally those things have been kind of coming to the forefront. I don't know if they're actually going to happen. And if they don't, like we expressed that before as well, we just keep moving forward and we keep remembering the value that we're in. But this is starting to step into that stage of manifestation. And, everyone is different. Everyone has a different belief in how they bring about things, right? And so that's one thing the guy was also saying was, you have to have a source of belief, though. I think the commonality with all of them is like, whether it's religion, spiritualities, Buddhism, science, evolution. Some people believe in evolution, but there's something that grounds you in the notion that things do happen and things will come. Right? As long as you put good out and you keep envisioning like what you want
to do. That's what it's rooted in. It's not being so hung up on the how, right? Obviously the how is important because that's how you're going to take each step forward and get to your destination that you envision for yourself. But ultimately the success is rooted in the vision that you imagine for yourself, and we can't allow ourselves to overstress on the how, because we just take a step. Okay, was this a mistake? Was this a win? What can I learn from this? Take another step. And all of that is rooted in your beliefs, like you're saying, and all of that can also be rooted in the things that interest you when we're thinking about it in a professional development sense. And for you, in terms of your career, right? I know you're in the midst of submitting applications for venture capital stuff, so that's really cool for you. But I mean, we were just having a conversation about how you're not necessarily worried about all the external possibilities.
That was an unforced error that I kept making as well, thinking about my career, was the negative thought that I will have to sacrifice one side of myself for the other.
Right.
That was an error in regards to mentality, right? So like getting rid of, like you said, becoming aware in terms of, let's get to that how, like really how, and it's different for everyone, but at least we can find some baseline for all of us is recognizing that mental habit, right? Or that physical habit, aka my wallet. Back to the tinier things. And then what are the tools? So I think the tools for career was definitely the manifestation, the meditating, the changing my train of thought, because my train of thought would literally go into this circle and this control freak girl who was like, you need to have this, you need to have this, this needs to happen next. If you get this opportunity, if you get this opportunity, let me say it again, if no.
And if you don't, then everything's gonna fall apart. Everything's ruined. Right. You don't know what to do. You don't know what to do. You can't adjust. You don't know where to go next. And that's not okay. That you can't have that. You can't have that thought.
Right. So that piece, that flow is now changing to, this is where I'm at.
Yeah.
This is who I am.
This is what I want.
Right.
And I'm going to do everything in my power to obtain it. But if I don't obtain it, well, then that's okay. There's going to be something else that comes my way.
And I know the tools when I feel like I'm in that primal state. I know the tools to get me to that positive state so that I can keep being productive towards actually making a step. Because like you said, we cannot dwell on it too long.
We can't. No.
We can't, because that will distract us.
We're going to be stuck in the moment.
Right.
And we have
period. And that's procrastination.
Right.
And that's holding us back. That's halting. That's coming to a pause. That's being stagnant. And we don't want that in the Aftergrad community.
At all. Because it's so easy to live in that moment and to just say that, okay, everything that's happening in life and around me is just lending itself to me being in this moment and not progressing. But if you allow those thoughts and the negative energy, I mean, we just have to be so conscious of how life impacts our psyche. And again, going back to the awareness, if you can internalize how life and how you move through it and how various interactions impact you, you're just more in control. You're more powerful.
Exactly. Right. And like our elders say is like, life moves fast. Right. And I'd rather blink and be a changed person than blink and be in the exact, that is my worst nightmare, being in the exact same spot that I started. Right.
And the fact of the matter is, I mean, every second, this was a point that I think I was making to you earlier, every second we're changing. As Aftergrads, as people, we're constantly in change. And if you're not having check-ins with yourself, right, if you're not getting to know yourself, we have a conversation about clarity, right, clarity of thought. If you're not checking in with yourself to learn where you're at now, you're just living, right, you're living in an old body, right? But you have to constantly be scrutinizing. You have to be scrutinizing yourself, your past self, where you're going. Because otherwise you're just going to be trapped in the past. And that's not what we want for ourselves because we're trying to grow. We have to constantly be asking ourselves questions about what I want, who am I? And if you don't have answers to those questions, and it's okay if you don't, that's totally fine because again, you're changing, so there's going to always... But let me
be real and abrupt and like quite blunt. Find that clarity.
Find the clarity.
That's the key.
That is it.
That is the key. Because let me tell you, clarity brings forth conviction. That's what I leave you with. Clarity brings forth conviction.
And belief is your truth.
Transparency is your truth.
All of that.
Communication
is going to allow Aftergrads to level up.
Level up, even when we don't know what leveling up looks like. Our brain does not know the difference, guys. We don't.
It's rooted in the emotions, and you can imagine emotions based on ideas, visions that you see for yourself in the future. You can create those emotions right now. You don't actually have to experience it. You don't have to experience it. Just sit with yourself, meditate.
Close those eyes.
Close the eyes. Think about it.
Let's start this imagination.
What do you want for yourself? What do you want for your life? Imagine it. Literally, like, the exercise can be done right now. Just close your eyes.
That everyone needs to be creative. Everyone is an artist. Because you literally have to paint your own picture.
100%.
Or else you're going to be painting the exact same thing the person next to you is painting. Right? These experiences that we're living, we're not only experiencing it and creating emotion around what we experience, but other people's experiences, from hearing them, from seeing them, they are also dictating and having an influence on our visions as well. And so we got...
That's tea. That's tea.
Yeah.
That's it. That's really it. I mean, again, just imagine it. And then actualize it.
Yeah.
And that's it.
So I'm imagining that I am not going to lose my wallet again. And I am really good with names, guys.
Right.
You tell me once, I remember
And I'm a fantastic public speaker.
Period.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm going to get this job.
Yes, you are. You're going to be the best venture capitalist alive. Period.
Thank you, Brad.
Yes.
And with that...
Alright, Aftergrads, that's it for this episode. Thank you for tuning in. Definitely follow us on Instagram at the Aftergrad Podcast.
If you enjoyed our visual version, make sure to subscribe so you can be updated of our latest releases.
Also, Aftergrads, we really want to hear from you, so if you have a question, comment, concern, or life situation that pertains to being an Aftergrad, definitely share those with us over at our email address, which is theaftergradpodcast@gmail.com, or you can DM us on Instagram, which again is at the Aftergrad Podcast.
Finally, and really most importantly, we would appreciate a 5-star review. Not only does this make us happy, but it helps grow our community of fellow Aftergrads.
Absolutely. Thank you again for tuning in, listening, or watching. And with that, this is the Aftergrad Podcast. Peace.
Ciao.
Gain clarity, guys.
Yes.
It's right there.
We need that truth to come to life.
Period.